A wild gunfight with police. Another officer shot.
It was a gunfight. It was a million of them.
Baltimore's violence on a whole new level. The mayor's response.
No, we're no city under siege. No, we're not under siege.
The growing safety concerns as police officers are under attack.
We've been terrorizing the police for a minute.
Fox 45 News at 4 starts with a city in crisis.
New today, this is the man police say fired at an officer earlier this week and led them on a chase last night that ended in a hail of bullets. Tyrone Banks died after being shot by officers. The latest violence in a city in crisis, raising a lot of questions about Baltimore and the safety of its first responders. Right now, Fox 45 is bringing you team coverage of that shooting. We're telling you about Tyrone Banks' history with the law, getting reaction from the neighborhood where it happened, and asking the city's elected officials about what solutions they're proposing. But first, the dramatic video of the gun battle that played out on the streets of Baltimore. It's making the rounds on social media today. We're showing you the whole thing so you can see and hear how that intense gun battle was.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! It's it!
And there it is, that wild video of the scene unfolding in Southeast Baltimore last night. Joining us now to analyze what we have just seen and heard is Jason Johnson. He is a former deputy commissioner of the Baltimore Police Department and currently president of the Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Thanks for having me.
Obviously, that is an intense situation. What do you make of it?
Well, it's dramatic. I mean, it's unbelievable to see that, to actually see a video of it. The thing that really jumped out at me was the very first shot that you hear. It has a really distinct sound, and it indicated to me that it was coming from within the car of the suspect who was fleeing. And you hear that shot, and it almost sounds like the bullet whizzes past the cameraman. He kind of indicates he got scared because it sounds like it really whizzed past him. And then they chase down the street, and when it ends, obviously there's a lot of gunfire. We don't know what part of the gunfire may have been from the fleeing suspect and how much was from the officers involved, but it's definitely dramatic.
Obviously, and that first shot, wherever it came from, that's obviously significant to the investigation.
Well, it's very significant because it indicates that the officers were aware, if that shot did come from the fleeing suspect, they were aware that he was armed and he was willing to use that gun that he had against police officers, which sets the stage for what happens next.
And then you have the history of those officers believing this is the same person that fired shots at an officer the night before.
Certainly.
So that's the backdrop.
Yeah, that's in the back of their mind, but then when they hear the gunshot, presumably from within the vehicle, that tells them that not only was he armed the night before where he fired shots at officers and is willing to do that, but he's still armed and able to do it last night.
Based on what you saw, justifiable actions by those officers?
Well, certainly you don't see the end result. You don't see, based on that video, you don't see what the officers were particularly confronted with, but it stands to reason that they were confronted with a deadly force threat based on the information that we have, and therefore would be justified.
All right, Jason Johnson, the president of the Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund, thank you so much for coming in and talking with us today. Well, again, dozens of officers were involved in that chase. Officials say they knew this was the same person that shot at officers 2 days before. Fox 45's Maxine Stryker begins our live coverage from police headquarters tonight. Maxine.
Well, Jennifer, from right here, we are less than a mile from where that scene unfolded last night at Fayette and Caroline Street. Today, we know the officer is recovering at home and in good spirits, although police have yet to identify them. Commissioner Michael Harrison, though, commending all of the officers involved last night for reacting so quickly, identifying that suspect and then running towards danger.
I was shocked.
A second Baltimore police officer shot this month has left Mayor Jack Young and the community stunned and fed up.
I'm going to keep saying it till they understand that it's unacceptable for people to be running and shooting people in the streets of Baltimore, driving their cars, shooting at folk in Baltimore.
Police Commissioner Michael Harrison says late last night, officers spotted 30-year-old Tyrone Domingo Banks, the same suspect accused of targeting 2 officers Tuesday.
At the intersection of Fayette and Caroline, there was an encounter where our officers engaged that subject who they believed to be armed. There was gunfire from our officers.
From there, police say the suspect tried to flee.
We believe that subject was out of the car, got back into the car, drove as we followed, and then went to a second location a block away where again there was another encounter between our officers and this subject, where what we know right now is that our officers fired again.
Harrison says upwards of 10 officers were involved, one of them shot in the leg.
At that second location, our officers, multiple officers, fired weapons, but it is unknown how many officers or how many rounds. What we know is that that subject was in fact armed. There is a gun that is on the scene.
Banks was rushed to the hospital where he later died. Mayor Young says enough is enough, and in order to prevent crimes like this from happening, the community needs to step up.
We're doing everything that we can do. We need city residents to help us to decrease this crime in the city by start telling what they see.
Now, a female civilian also injured on the scene last night, but is expected to make a full recovery. Police say now they are reviewing all of that body-worn camera footage, but that's going to take a lot of time with more than 10 officers involved last night. Reporting live from police headquarters, Maxine Stryker, Fox 45 News.
Thank you, Maxine. Fox 45 has learned that some of that gunfire missed its intended target. Shelley Orman is live in the neighborhood where this happened. Shelley, many people telling you that they had a sleepless night after all those bullets started flying, and that certainly is understandable.
We heard that a lot today, Jennifer. We're about a half a mile from police headquarters where Maxine is. That's Fayette Street up there. We're also about the same distance from Johns Hopkins Hospital. All of this started at that corner up there, Fayette and North Caroline Street, traveling down this street and ended about halfway down the block here on Caroline Street. Those who live nearby tell us that it sounded like a war zone. Today, we saw plenty of people out checking their cars and also their houses for bullet holes. By mid-morning, most of the police tape is taken down. The street's back open, but neighbors' nerves still haven't settled.
It was a lot of shots. It was a million of them. I can't even tell you how many it was.
Neighbors say the suspect's car ran into this tree here on North Caroline Street.
That's where the vehicle hit. This tree right here. And you can see there's blood stains somewhere he came outside the car.
There are still car parts nearby.
It was a gunfight, pretty much. You can clearly hear that that person was not just giving in. If anybody say anything about them holes in that van, he was not being shot at by himself. He was shooting too.
A nearby window was also shot out. That building is being renovated.
And I was scared to open the door, It was really bad.
Chris Stevens lives steps away. His car has 2 bullet holes in it. He couldn't count the shots that were fired or how many officers he saw outside.
And at one time I came out when the shots had been finished fired, and I saw like 3 of them were out here like this with guns, and I was like this, so it was really terrible.
The outside of his neighbor's house is riddled with bullet holes. Now, we counted 6 of these. The woman who lives in this house was actually at work at the hospital when all this happened. Now, as for his car, Stephen says that police told him that he could file a police report for his insurance company. Live in Southeast Baltimore, Shelley Orman, Fox 45 News.
Thank you, Shelley. Well, last night's shooting, the 7th time in 2 months that law enforcement has been attacked in Baltimore City. Numbers 5 and 6 happened on Tuesday when police say the same suspect from last night's shooting shot at an officer in Baltimore's Upton neighborhood after trying to hit another officer with his vehicle. Number 4 happened earlier this month when Sergeant Isaac Carrington was shot in broad daylight after 2 men tried to rob him and his neighbor right in front of his home in Northeast Baltimore. Right now, Sergeant Carrington continues to recover. Number 3, July 24th, a civilian police employee assaulted and robbed while on his way to work in downtown Baltimore. The incident happened just blocks from city police headquarters. Number 2, July 19th, a deputy commissioner and his wife, both the victims, robbed at gunpoint near Patterson Park. And the first, the attack over the past 2 months happened just a few days prior on July 15th. Sergeant Bill Shiflett shot in a deadly shooting at a methadone clinic in North Baltimore. Sergeant Shiflett survived. Well, there was other deadly violence in Baltimore early this morning. A 16-year-old is dead and a woman and 2 teens injured after a shooting on East Monument Street. There was a large police presence at the scene shortly after the shooting at 12:30 this morning. It occurred only about 1 hour after the deadly police confrontation with a gunman in southeast Baltimore. Commissioner Harrison addressed the police response to all of the overnight shootings.
By virtue of what you see tonight, our officers are running toward it, and we're trying to make sure we can apprehend these people who are not only just committing violence against us, but against all of the people of this community. And I think that speaks to the culture of violence, but we're not backing down from it, and we're going to find who's doing this, and we're going to hold them accountable as well.
Well, from the beginning of the year through August 24th, the Baltimore City Police Department is reporting a 17% increase in homicides from this time last year. Non-fatal shootings are up 24%. It's important to note that overall violent crime is down in the city by 4%. We've been following this breaking news since it happened late last night. We'll continue to bring you the latest both on air and online at foxbaltimore.com. Hurricane Dorian growing in strength. It looks to be headed straight for the Florida coast. Video from above shows the long lines for gas at a Davie, Florida Costco. It's the same scene in several parts of Florida. This is the Wawa 90 miles north in Port St. Lucie. Hundreds of people getting ready for that storm. Our chief meteorologist, Vitas Reed, is tracking Dorian. He joins us now with the very latest. Vitas.
Yeah, some of the most important things about this storm are the steering factors. Where will it go? How long will it take to get there? And how long will it last? And right now, the strength of that storm is projected to really get stronger. And part of the deciding path of this is really this area of high pressure up here and an area of high pressure over the Gulf. We're looking at the Bermuda Azores high up here that is helping give a channel for this to move up north of Hispaniola right now. And this storm right now, a strong Category 1, projected to become a Category 2, and then up to possibly a 4 as it makes landfall somewhere on that eastern coastline, somewhere between Jacksonville to the north and then to the southern portion of that state, Miami. So we're looking at a very well-defined eye here that has formed with this storm moving north right now with wind gusts of 105 miles per hour, moving northwest at about 13 miles per hour. So we're going to continue to watch this very closely. It is a really dire situation for folks down there in Florida to get prepared, get boarded up, or really actually vacate the coastline, because this is going to be a major blow to the eastern portion of that state. I have the latest track from the Hurricane Center coming up.
All right, Vitas, thank you. Governor Larry Hogan standing by his decision to build a third span of the Bay Bridge. Coming up, why he says the state can't afford to put off the project. Also ahead, Jeopardy host Alex Trebek shares details about his cancer fight, the treatment milestone he's celebrating tonight. First, tonight's preseason game is the Battle of the Beltway. The high stakes involved in the Ravens matchup with the Washington Redskins. We're live at FedEx Field next.